Tonight, we begin with a development that stunned defense officials across Europe, rattled intelligence services in Moscow, and forced every major NATO capital into emergency consultations. A development that unfolded not over a steady buildup, not after weeks of signaling, but in a sudden, breathtaking window of just a few hours, when Ukraine deployed what British officials are calling an enhanced, previously undisclosed variant of a UK-provided precision strike weapon, a system that had been discussed only in classified corridors, hinted at in parliamentary defense briefings, and quietly tested in joint UK-Ukrainian programs, but never once acknowledged as operational until today, when its unmistakable signature appeared on satellite feeds watched by analysts around the world. What happened next left Russia shocked because the weapon Ukraine used, while based on an existing British platform, was configured in a way that Russian intelligence had not anticipated, with upgraded guidance, extended range integration, and a targeting architecture that bore the unmistakable imprint of British engineering and NATO intelligence fusion, a combination that allowed Ukraine to strike deeper, faster, and more precisely than at any previous point in this war. As the launch data filtered in, and as British defense officials maintained their characteristic silence, analysts quickly realized they were watching the debut of something that had been suspected, but never confirmed. A UK-designed strike enhancement package applied to a known missile system, effectively transforming it into a next-generation long-range asset that Russia had not prepared for, could not intercept, and did not believe Ukraine possessed. The shock in Moscow was immediate. Russian military bloggers erupted in panic, accusing their own defense ministry of failing to anticipate Western capabilities. Senior Russian commanders reportedly scrambled air defense units across multiple oblasts, repositioning them in confusion because they did not know whether this new British-assisted capability would strike again, and if so, where. And all of this happened in the shadow of months of Russian claims that the United Kingdom had reached the limit of its support, claims that now look not only inaccurate, but dangerously overconfident, because today's strike demonstrated that the UK had been helping Ukraine develop a far more advanced precision capability than anyone realized, one with deeper reach, higher survivability, and intelligence-guided accuracy that allowed Ukrainian forces to hit a Russian military logistics hub that had been considered safe, hardened, and well outside the range of previously known Ukrainian systems. For months, there had been hints, fleeting anomalies in satellite images, unusual flight paths of RAF reconnaissance aircraft, unexplained increases in joint UK-Ukrainian technical meetings, but nothing concrete, nothing you could take to a briefing room and say, this is it. And then today, without a warning press release, without a diplomatic buildup, Ukraine simply used it. Analysts studying the telemetry were stunned by the weapon's flight profile. Its maneuvering was tighter, its radar signature nearly non-existent, its descent angle unlike any previously observed Storm Shadow or Scalp variant, leading experts to conclude that this was either a significantly enhanced British deep strike configuration or a long-rumored UK-supported integration with Ukrainian launch architecture. Something hybridized, something adaptive, something that UK engineers had been quietly helping Ukraine perfect, out of view, away from cameras, away from Moscow's eyes. And if Russia's stunned silence today is any indication, the Kremlin had no idea it was coming. Putin's defense establishment had insisted for months that UK weapons, while dangerous, were predictable, that their range, their accuracy, their flight paths were known quantities. That assumption collapsed today. Ukrainian forces struck their targets, Russian command nodes, supply depots, and an ammunition distribution facility, with devastating precision, and not one Russian air defense battery managed to intercept the incoming missiles, even though their supposed engagement envelopes should have covered the area. The panic inside Russian channels was unmistakable. Commanders demanded explanations, air defense officers blamed outdated radar, propagandists scrambled to rewrite the narrative. But the truth was simpler and far more unsettling for Moscow. This was a capability they had never accounted for, delivered by a UK that had kept its technical cooperation with Ukraine utterly quiet, intentionally opaque, and deliberately underestimated in public discourse. And that is what makes tonight so consequential. Not simply that Ukraine struck Russia using a UK-origin weapon, but that they did so using a version Russia did not know existed. A version that required months of British-Ukrainian coordination, secure testing, digital integration with NATO intelligence feeds, and the kind of engineering partnership that leaves a fingerprint Russia saw today for the first time, too late to do anything about it. In Moscow, analysts are now scrambling to answer questions they never thought they would have to confront. What else has the UK been helping Ukraine upgrade? How many of these enhanced systems exist? Can Russia still credibly claim its air defenses can protect strategic rear areas? And perhaps most destabilizing of all, what does it mean for Russia's war strategy if the UK is not only supplying weapons, but quietly evolving them in partnership with Ukraine? Tonight, the shock is not just operational, it is psychological, strategic, and deeply political. Putin built his war narrative on the idea that Russia could absorb whatever the West gave Ukraine, that Western weapons were finite, predictable, limited to their advertised specifications. But today's deployment ripped that assumption to shreds because it revealed that the UK had been playing a longer, smarter, more technically sophisticated game, one that involved strengthening Ukraine's strike capabilities beyond publicly declared limits, one that involved preparing Ukraine not only to defend itself, but to reshape the battlefield calculus entirely. And so, as night falls in Kyiv, as Ukraine assesses the impact of its unprecedented strike, as UK officials maintain their disciplined silence, and as Moscow sits in a state of rare, unspoken alarm, the world is watching a moment that may very well redefine the next phase of this war, a moment when a previously unseen British-enhanced weapon proved that Russia's assumptions were outdated, that Putin's intelligence services were outmaneuvered, and that Ukraine's partnership with the United Kingdom is deeper, stronger, and more technologically ambitious than anyone outside those classified rooms had imagined. Tonight, what unfolded on the battlefield was not just a strike, it was a revelation, a recalibration, and a reminder that in this war, surprises are not over. Innovations are not slowing, and Ukraine's allies are not done reshaping what is possible. Russia's shock is not temporary, it is strategic. And the United Kingdom's quiet engineering fingerprints are now unmistakably visible on the most consequential Ukrainian strike in months, one that will force Moscow to rethink everything it believed it understood about this war.